The computer screen flickered with an error message so ordinary, most would have ignored it. I didn't. That decision would cost me everything I held dear: my career, my marriage, my safety, but would ultimately save 147 million Americans from having their identities stolen without ever knowing why. My name is Nathan Reeves, 34, a cybersecurity specialist who stumbled upon the largest data breach in American history. What I'm about to tell you has been buried under non-disclosure agreements and corporate damage control, but the truth deserves to be known. Working at TrustGuard Credit Bureau wasn't my dream job. The pay was decent, the benefits solid, and the work mostly mundane. I joined their security team after a stint at the NSA, overqualified, but looking for something with regular hours after the birth of my daughter, Lily. My wife, Melissa, had been clear. No more all-nighters hunting state-sponsored hackers. I'd promised her stability. It was a promise I would break the night of June 13, 2017. I was running a routine security scan, the kind we did monthly to tick boxes for compliance. Most of my colleagues ran the automated tools and filed the reports without looking deeper. That night, something caught my eye, an unusual pattern in the API response time from one of our legacy systems. Nothing screamed emergency, just a 3-millisecond delay that shouldn't have been there. Probably nothing, my colleague Dave said, already packing up his backpack. Server load, document it, and come grab a beer. I waved him off. I'll just check one thing. That one thing led to another, and another. By 2 a.m., my desk was littered with energy drink cans, and I was staring at something impossible: a backdoor into our consumer database that had been open for at least 76 days. Someone had been extracting data through a vulnerability in our dispute portal, a website where consumers could challenge inaccuracies in their credit reports. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the logs: names, social security numbers, birth dates, addresses, driver's license numbers, credit card information. The most intimate financial details of American consumers were flowing out of our systems like water through a broken dam. I immediately called Marcus Whelan, our Chief Information Security Officer, dragging him from sleep. "This can't wait until morning," I insisted. "We're experiencing an active breach." When Marcus arrived, disheveled and irritated, his face went from annoyed to ashen as I walked him through my findings. "How extensive?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "Based on the data volume, potentially our entire consumer database." Marcus collapsed into a chair. "Jesus Christ, that's over 140 million people." Then I discovered their secret. What happened next still fills me with a sickening rage. Instead of immediately shutting down the vulnerable portal and notifying authorities, Marcus made a call to legal. By morning, the executive floor was buzzing with hushed conversations behind closed doors. I was instructed to document everything but tell no one. "We need to assess the situation before creating panic," explained Vanessa Parker, TrustGuard's general counsel, during an emergency meeting. "This information doesn't leave this room." Days passed, then weeks. The vulnerable portal remained online. No consumers were notified. No patches were deployed. Instead, I watched executives feverishly preparing damage control strategies, evaluating stock implications, and consulting with PR firms. In a private moment, Marcus confided in me. "The board is concerned about the quarterly earnings call. We're discussing the appropriate timing for disclosure." Appropriate timing? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. People's entire financial identities are exposed right now. "It's complicated, Nathan," he sighed. There are regulatory considerations, shareholder interests. There are people, I interrupted, actual people whose lives will be destroyed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pictured my own daughter's future being mortgaged by identity thieves because some executives wanted to protect their stock options. I thought about the elderly couple who'd brought cookies to our office after we'd helped resolve their credit dispute. How many millions like them were now vulnerable, their data being sold on dark web markets, while TrustGuard debated the optimal disclosure timeline. I made copies of my findings and secured them off-site. When Marcus realized what I was doing, he called me into his office. "You're creating potential evidence outside our attorney-client privilege," he warned. "That could be seen as corporate espionage." "I'm documenting a crime," I countered. His expression hardened. "You signed confidentiality agreements. Breaking those has consequences?" The threat was clear. I had a mortgage, a 2-year-old daughter, a wife who'd just gone part-time to spend more time with our family. I wasn't naive about what corporations do to whistleblowers. Still, I couldn't be part of this. The next morning, I submitted evidence of the breach to the Federal Trade Commission through their anonymous portal, providing enough technical detail to be credible without revealing my identity. It wasn't enough. TrustGuard's security team identified me as the source within days. I was terminated for violating confidentiality protocols. My keycard stopped working. Security escorted me out. Former colleagues crossed the street to avoid me. The company's legal department sent threatening letters warning of civil and criminal prosecution. Melissa stood by me initially, but the strain took its toll. When strange cars began parking outside our home and our mail arrived, opened, she took Lily to her parents' house. "I married a cybersecurity expert, not a crusader," she said the night she left. "We have a daughter to think about." 2 months after my termination, TrustGuard finally acknowledged the breach publicly, deliberately downplaying its scope. They offered consumers a year of free credit monitoring, through their own compromised services no less, and their stock dipped temporarily before recovering. Meanwhile, I was unemployable. Every interview ended the same way, with uncomfortable glances when background checks revealed the non-disclosure agreements I'd violated. My savings dwindled. I sold our house. Melissa filed for divorce. What kept me going were the letters. They began arriving after a Washington Post reporter connected me to the breach disclosure. Handwritten notes from people across the country, thanking me for giving them a chance to protect themselves. A retired teacher whose identity had been stolen 6 times. A young couple whose mortgage application was denied because of fraudulent accounts opened in their names. A cancer patient who discovered medical debt that wasn't hers. 3 years later, vindication came. A congressional investigation revealed that TrustGuard executives had known about fundamental security vulnerabilities for years before the breach, but had repeatedly deferred fixes to prioritize product features that drove revenue. Internal emails confirmed they'd delayed disclosure to sell stock before the news went public. Ultimately, the company paid a $700 million settlement, a fraction of the damage caused to consumers. 5 executives received minor fines they could pay from their annual bonuses. None faced criminal charges. Today, I work as an independent security consultant for consumer advocacy groups. My clearances are gone. My income a third of what it once was. Melissa remarried last spring. I see Lily on weekends and try to explain why Daddy's apartment is so small compared to the house we once had. Sometimes, in dark moments, I ask myself if it was worth it. Then I remember the elderly Holocaust survivor who tracked me down to show me how identity thieves had emptied his bank account, A week before TrustGuard finally disclosed the breach, he'd lost his life savings because executives wanted another week of stock price stability. "You did what was right when it wasn't easy," he told me, gripping my hand with surprising strength. "In my experience, that's the only thing that matters in the end. The system is still broken. The same executives run different companies. Data breaches have become so common that they barely make the news. The laws that should protect consumers are written by the lobbyists paid to defang them. But maybe, just maybe, the next security analyst who spots something wrong will remember my story and find the courage to act sooner. Maybe the next company will think twice about burying a breach. Maybe one consumer will check their credit report because they heard what happened and catch the fraud before it destroys their life. If that happens, the price I paid will have been worth it. The truth is, our digital identities, the data that defines our financial lives, are held by companies that will always prioritize profits over protection. The breach I discovered wasn't an anomaly. It was inevitable in a system where those responsible for safeguarding our most sensitive information face minimal consequences for negligence. The question isn't whether your data will be compromised, but when, and whether you'll ever know about it when it happens. As for me, I've stopped waiting for justice. Instead, I focus on the small victories. The privacy laws my testimony helped strengthen, the security protocols my consulting work has improved, and the knowledge that when faced with an impossible choice between my career and my conscience, I chose correctly. Sometimes doing the right thing costs everything, and sometimes that's exactly what it's worth.